It's Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. Trump says the war is over. Trump says the war has just begun. And Trump says the war will be relatively short, probably maybe. Next on the AM Update. All right, I'm being just a little bit cynical there. President Trump addressed reporters at Doral in Florida the other day about the ongoing state of the war with Iran. President Trump once again sounding very, very confident in the coalition force's efforts thus far.
We've struck over 5,000 targets to date, some of them very major targets, and we've left some of the most important targets for later in case we need to do it. If we hit them, it's going to take many years for them to be rebuilt, having to do with electricity production and many other things. So we're not looking to do that if we don't have to. But they're the kind of things that are very easy to hit, but very devastating if they are hit. We are waiting to see what happens before we hit them. We could take them all out in one day, but it's all resulting in a 90% decline in various things, but in particular, Iranian missile launchers, and 83% drop in drone launchers, as you know.
So there again, President Trump bragging over the coalition's efforts and their ability to hit targets deep within Iran. Earlier in the day, President Trump told CBS that he believes the war is basically over. A little bit later, he said,
"Stronger, and our country is doing really well. I mean, at a level that nobody thought. We took a little excursion because we felt we had to do that to get rid of some evil. And I think you'll see it's going to be a short-term excursion. How good is our military, right?"
There, President Trump says it's going to be a short-term excursion. Somebody asked him later, how short is short? Does that mean this week? And he said, probably not. Moving on. More firing towards Turkey. It's a little unclear yesterday whether or not a missile from Iran, launched from Iran, actually struck Turkey. I've seen conflicting reports. Nevertheless, Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan had this to say. Quote, "A miscalculation on the part of Iran in targeting us has caused deep wounds between the two countries. Better not start pissing off the Turks. They are not the same country they once were," as Tayyip Erdogan pointed out the other day on social media as well. So overall, when it comes to Iran, it seems like things are going according to plan, at least according to coalition forces. But again, things are so fluid and could change very quickly. Iran did announce yesterday, or the other day, I should say, their selection of a new supreme leader, Taba Khamenei, whose father, Ali Khamenei, as well as his mother, and his wife and his son were all killed in the opening day of the strikes against Iran. They named Taba Khamenei the new supreme leader. So far, I'm not even sure if he's alive, to be honest with you. They have not provided proof of death. There were reports that Iranian state TV said that he was injured in those attacks. Again, no proof of life during the official ceremony introducing him as the new supreme leader. All the regime could produce was a cardboard cutout. Not joking. Not a cutout, but a cardboard picture of the new supreme leader. Iran, according to reports, may be activating sleeper cells outside of the country, according to an alert that was intercepted by the U.S. The encrypted communications, believed to have come from inside Iran, was sent as an operational trigger for sleeper assets, according to ABC News. Sleeper cells, of course, are agents, terrorists planted in countries who blend in with the normal populations. There is some confusion on this as well, as others have reported on social media. It's unclear whether those calls were coming from inside Iran or trying to reach cells within Iran as part of the resistance, something to keep an eye on. Well, oil prices shot down yesterday. I said they went parabolic yesterday as well, at least over the weekend and late last week. By some estimates, oil prices actually saw their biggest decline in a single day in history yesterday. Prices climbed to as high as, I believe, $116 a barrel before climbing back down to $87 a barrel by the end of the day. Two main reasons for this, at least as far as I can tell. Ships figured out a way to pass through the Straits of Hormuz, or the Strait of Hormuz, turned off their transponders when they were going around the strait, turned them back on when they are in the Gulf of Oman, I believe it is. And so that allowed freight to come back through the strait. So that's one big reason. Also, the G7 nations discussed releasing hundreds of millions of dollars from their strategic reserves. As again, I said, oil prices suffering one of their largest drops in single day in history, going from around $116 a barrel to under $90 a barrel by the end of the day. Let's go to this. Here is New York Police Department Commissioner Jessica Tisch on the botched IED bombing at the hand of two self-radicalized Islamists from Pennsylvania who went to New York City to counter-protest, or counter-bomb in this case, and a protest set up by that weird, creepy dude, Jake Lang, in front of the mayor's residence. Anyway, here's NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch on that foiled bombing.
Explosive devices that were ignited and deployed on Saturday during protests outside of Gracie Mansion. We can now share that federal charges have been filed in the Southern District of New York against two individuals, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, in connection with that attack.
So police and authorities say that those two individuals, both of them teenagers, traveled from Bucks County, Pennsylvania to New York City for the expressed purpose of committing an act of terrorism. And this is being investigated as an act of terrorism. By the way, one of the teens who tried to carry out that act of terrorism, his parents live in a $2.5 million Pennsylvania home and are naturalized citizens from Afghanistan. Are we going to have a serious conversation ever about quote-unquote legal immigration? We better. Now this, before the break, James Talarico, once again, the Oppo research on him. I'm a little bit scared that maybe this is being dumped all at once, maybe firing all of our bullets too soon. Here he is on a podcast from a few years ago, I believe, being asked, well, just listen to this.
Something that you love that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children who showed up yesterday at the state capitol to advocate for their humanity. They shouldn't have to, but it was an inspiration to watch.
That is now Democrat Senate nominee from the state of Texas, James Talarico. Ask something that you love that's not family or friends. Just top of his head. Trans kids. I love them. What does it say? Maybe I don't want to ask this question. What does it say when somebody is asked a question like that? You could have said anything, any general answer like, you know what, I just love bright sunny days, or I just love, going down to see a game, see the Longhorns play in Austin. No, the first thing he said without hesitation, with no hesitation, I love trans kids. I love trans kids. What a creep. When we come back, I'm going to talk about Qatar. I think I mentioned this in passing the other day. I've got more of a hypothesis about Qatar that goes beyond the typical banter you see on social media. Also, Ticketmaster reaches a deal with the Trump administration, and a new poll you won't believe the two things that are less popular than artificial intelligence. It's coming up next. A new NBC News poll polled a bunch of different entities, a bunch of different political figures on their favorability rating. In this poll, the highest favorability rating is enjoyed by Pope Leo, who doesn't exactly have a great mark. 42% have a positive image of Pope Leo, 8 negative. It's a differential of 34 points. Stephen Colbert is next, randomly. 35 positive, 25 negative. And then we see our first politician, Marco Rubio. He's underwater in favorability, 34 to 41. Less popular than him, Sanctuary Cities. Less popular than Sanctuary Cities is J.D. Vance. Less popular than J.D. Vance is AOC. Less popular than AOC, Donald Trump. Less popular than Trump is the Republican Party. Less popular than the Republican Party is Kamala Harris. Less popular than Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. Less popular than Gavin Newsom, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Less popular than ICE is artificial intelligence. artificial intelligence, 26% favorability, 46% negative favorability, underwater by 20 points. The two things less popular than AI, the Democrat Party and Iran. This whole data center, I think it's probably driven by this whole data center phenomenon. I see it in my own community. They're trying to put in a data center here. People know it's going to jack up the utility prices. It always does. And for what? A handful of jobs, literally a handful of jobs. And for the people that get those jobs, it's nice for them. But for the rest of us, we basically have to subsidize that through higher energy costs and higher utility prices. No, thank you. You can understand why. U.S. Department of Justice said it's reached a tentative deal in the antitrust lawsuit against Ticketmaster and Live Nation Entertainment. Critics of the event ticket outlet have accused the company of seeking a monopoly in the industry in order to artificially maintain high sales fees. On Monday, senior Justice Department official said anonymously in a call with reporters that a deal was a win-win for everybody. Live Nation has agreed to divest itself of 13 amphitheaters in the U.S. as part of the deal, which also includes a $280 million fine. The official said a double-digit number of states have signaled they will agree with the deal. New York Attorney General Letitia James was among those who said they would not go along with the deal and continue their own lawsuits against the companies. Tish James said, quote, "My attorney general colleagues and I have a strong case against Live Nation, and we will continue our lawsuit to protect consumers and restore fair competition to the live entertainment industry." Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren ridiculed President Trump over the deal in a post on social media. Generally speaking, I prefer more of a hairpin trigger when it comes to monopolistic practices and breaking up monopolies. I believe as a capitalist, that's the best way, that's the best inducement for competition, and competition is good for everyone, the consumer, the businesses themselves, everyone. It's very weird, though, that you have two prominent Democrats, New York Attorney General Letitia James and Senator Elizabeth Warren, openly taking the pro-capitalist position, saying that this deal that the FTC has allegedly struck and the DOJ has struck with Ticketmaster and Live Nation, it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't promote competition enough. I guess you can chalk that up to just populist talking points. Qatar's Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani talked about the ongoing fracas with Iran. Again, this is Qatar's foreign minister saying this to a reporter out loud. Something maybe we wouldn't have ever considered happening 2, 3, 4 years ago, or even 2, 3, 4 months ago. Listen to this.
It is a big sense of betrayal. This is the second time. That's why it's also like for us, it's been something really significant to see the attack, which was showing that being pre-planned. Like once the war started, just maybe an hour after the start of the war, Qatar and the other Gulf countries being attacked right away. And all of us before this war, and repeatedly we've been saying and repeating that we are not going to take part of any attacks or any wars against our neighbors. We would like to see a peaceful neighborhood. We were helping Iran and the United States in reaching diplomatic solutions. But this miscalculation by the Iranians to attack the Gulf countries has destroyed everything, actually. We would be like the glimpse of hope to bring some diplomatic solutions to the current conflict, and to be, to be attacked by one of the parties of that conflict. We will prioritize, of course, defending our country and making sure that our people's lives, goes normally, and they, as much as possible, they don't feel these threats coming to our countries.
That's pretty astonishing, especially when you take into account discourse over the tiny country of Qatar that you see online. That is Qatar's foreign minister, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani. Finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. You heard the foreign minister there say betrayal when it comes to Iran. Second time this has happened. Appears to have been pre-planned. We wanted to see a peaceful neighborhood. We were helping Iran find diplomatic solutions. This is a miscalculation. Iran has destroyed everything diplomatically. If you listen to some people online, you would think that Qatar is the biggest, baddest player, or at least one of the biggest, baddest players in the Middle East. I do not doubt for 1 minute, baseline Qatar is evil, or at least bad news. They have directly or indirectly helped or funded anti-subversive Western causes. Yet at the same time, they've hosted American military bases. While at the same time, they have played host to Hamas leadership. What's really going on here, I think, is quite simple when it comes to Qatar. They are a tiny country, and I think I mentioned this in passing on Friday. They are a tiny country. They are, to their north, threatened by a massive country that just so happens to share their gas field, which would be Qatar's golden goose for their posterity. They share that with Qatar. Qatar shares that with Iran. And so Qatar, if you're in leadership in Qatar, you are forced with playing ball with the Iranians. And if you want any sort of shot at your own sovereignty, playing ball with everybody else in the Middle East. I think most of what you've seen from Qatar over the years has been one massive and ongoing, never-ending game of triangulation. And yeah, do I think that they don't like the West? Yes. Yes, I do. I think they like their own continuity. I think they like their own cash and wealth that they built, massive sums of wealth that they built for themselves. I think they like that more than clashing with the West or clashing with anybody. And so, in order to survive, they have to play footsie with Iran. And in order to stay in the good graces of the West, they have to host a U.S. military base. So do I think they're this big monolithic force for evil in the Middle East? No, because they just showed their hand there. They hate the Iranians. They hate them. Some of the most forceful language against Iran has come from Qatar. That's going to do it for a Tuesday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.